MicroK8s running natively on Windows. That's what I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm super excited to look into Systemd with WSL. I think that you'll find it's a really exciting way to make Windows feel a bit more cloud native. We're going to look at how you get up and running and what the implications are for Windows, for Linux, and more importantly, for MicroK8s. Let's start with a recap on what is WSL anyway. It stands for the Windows Subsystem for Linux. It began its life as effectively a virtual machine that you'd run inside of Windows. You could SSH into it, you could run some commands, and it would be like having a remote Linux box. Over time, the needs of users evolved, and folks wanted to run things such as Docker containers in Windows. And therefore, there were some components such as Docker proxy that would allow you to talk between Windows and this virtual machine. But it never felt very native, and it always felt a bit clunky. With WSL2 and some of the changes to the architecture of Windows, there is now a hypervisor that runs Windows and Linux independently, and at the user runtime is where the Linux virtual machine is presented into Windows, meaning that you can open it up as a CLI tab, and it feels like a native experience. So you've almost got Windows and Linux combined. A bunch of folks have been using this for a few years with a lot of success, developers, engineers, and now it's evolved even further to have what is called Systemd inside of it. Systemd is a collection of tools and processes that typically run in Linux, your daemons, your mailers, things that keep the system running. But why I'm so excited about it is that it now enables Snap to run inside of WSL. Snap is the lifeblood of all the applications that are really exciting for the cloud native ecosystem, such as MicroK8s, Kube Control, and all of these other really great things that have been packaged in a way that get continuous updates. So let's dive right in and take a look at how to get installed. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is open your command prompt. From here, you want to open it up as an administrator. So because I've used WSL before, I get this little tab that gives me multiple choice. However, you can also open this up from your Windows applications directly, right-click, and open it as administrator. What you're then going to want to do is WSL --update. More likely than not, you've probably got the version before the new Systemd release of WSL. So you're going to want to go ahead and update that. So you can see that I've now got the most up-to-date version. That's great. That's step one. And then step two is if you're already running something like Ubuntu in WSL, well, let's flip back to that over here. So this is my Ubuntu distro. You want to go to /etc/wsl.conf, and you'll see that we now have boot systemd equals true. And this is the secret source of it. Once you've got that set up as well, you're going to want to do WSL --shutdown. And this will cause a restart of WSL. You can see in the background, we've actually got a termination of my Ubuntu process. So assuming that that's all good, I'm going to open it up in a new tab. So what will happen here is you'll get a little bit of delay as it's starting to boot up. Generally speaking, it's pretty quick actually on Linux when you are restarting Ubuntu. And that's actually one of the reasons I love it, is that you have this constrained operating system that you can use for development and have your host OS as well that you could put your other applications like VS Code on and so on. It's really nice because you can share the file system between them. The file system is shared between both of the operating systems running on the hypervisor, which means that you can modify files inside the guests, such as Ubuntu, and then see that reflected on the host. And this is great when you're doing development, right? I might want to use VS Code on my host, and then I might want to jump in and change something through Vim on my guest OS. So you can see now that Ubuntu has restarted. What we can also see is, we go to systemctl, we can see that Systemd is running. And this is exciting because that means that Snap is able to be installed. Now, if you don't have Snap installed, which you should do, you can go sudo apt install snap. When you have Snap installed, Snap will come up like this, which is great. And you can go sudo snap install MicroK8s, and you can run -- classic. You can also, if you like, you can change the channel. Remember, MicroK8s is super flexible, so we can go info MicroK8s. And if you don't want to go to the latest and greatest of Kubernetes, you can switch to an older version. So you go MicroK8s, let's have a look. There's all these different versions of K8s. You can even go to 126 Edge if you're feeling very brave, although I would not recommend it just yet, as of time, November the 14th, 2022. So let's go install MicroK8s Classic. Now, I've gone through this earlier, so I've got it installed. However, what I can do to show you is I'm going to change my channel. I'm going to go to the Edge release, which I just recommend you don't do. I switch that to refresh because I've already got it installed. And away we go. We've got MicroK8s now installing. One of the things that I think that goes really well between this whole concept of these super easy to get up environments and MicroK8s is this idea of upgrading, downgrading, side grading, this, that, and the other. Developers now expect this level of transience and ease of just wiping away with a tabula rasa and saying, hey, I want to try a different idea. That's the same with Kubernetes clusters. I might be building operators and completely wreck my environment. And suddenly I want to go back and say, you know what, I need to try this at a lower version. Even, as you can see here, you could test the upgrade path. Because what MicroK8s does is it keeps containerd running in the background. So you can actually upgrade the control plane, keep the containers running, and then suddenly with a new control plane, you can see how well they play. And you might find that you have certain deployments that actually don't work with new components, and it's a great way to test it. So as you can see here, we've now got MicroK8s installed. We go MicroK8s, kubectl, get pods. Put a -a on the end, and there we go. Everything's running. So what did we learn so far? We learned that we can deploy MicroK8s on top of WSL-based Ubuntu in Windows. And this is exciting because you don't need to use multipass. You don't need to use a virtual machine that Windows is managing. Now let me just explain that a bit further. Typically you might have used multipass to start something up in VirtualBox, which would be another layer of virtualization, so L2 virtualization. What you're actually using is the L1 virtualization, which is using what's called utility virtual machine, which is actually how that Linux host is powered. There are some benefits from this because it's using the L1 hypervisor. It's using the same hypervisor that's also controlling Windows. So you're getting that runtime performance improvement. You have limited amounts of pass-through going through nested virtual machines. And overall, it's a much simpler experience. The reason why I'm mentioning this today is that because people will say, hey, Alex, WSL with Systemd, you've been able to do that a while, right? You've been able to hack that together. Well, you've never been at a point where you can just run two commands, right? WSL update, and then you can do a snap install of MicroK8s. And for me, that's exciting because I think we're enabling now Windows developers as first-class citizens on this journey of cloud native. They no longer have to jump through hoops to suddenly get the same kind of experience of other folks. This is super exciting because I think that now means we can see a whole new type of contribution and new types of developments on the Windows platform, especially with WSL2. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Please go check it out. If you've got an old Windows machine or a new one, let me know how you get on, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks again. Bye-bye.